we get to be a part of his program. He's not a part of our program. We get to be part of his program, right? Wow. Thank you, Jesus. Just one thing that we can all thank God for this morning. Why don't we all just thank God? We can all do this for our moms. Stand up, mom. Here if you didn't have a mom. You know, even Jesus had a mom. Yes. So, anyway, mom will always be your mom, and you will always be her baby, even when you're 60 years old. Praise God. Wow. Happy Mother's Day. And it's good to be back. It's good to be back in South Florida. We're all over the place. Yeah, I was out, if you all don't know, I was out in Myanmar, and then I'm in Texas, and now I'm here. So, again, like I said, I'm not in charge, so whatever the Lord wants, I'm okay with that. And, you know, the wonderful privilege that we have is to get to know God, is that He's real. God is real. He is real, and He is involved in your life. They've had this saying that the devil is in the details. No, God is in the details. God is in the details, okay? And there's this, we have this strange idea somehow that He's out there and He's far away and He's not involved. That's not true. God is very involved with many, many things all around you and in your life, and He is He is revealing Himself and desiring that we could get to know Him. And of course, that's going to take eternity. So God needs all of time to reveal Himself. So you can just enjoy the journey and agree and align with Him. Get onto His program. Okay. I'm going to share something here. We'll just see, you know, Lord, wherever you want to go this morning, I just offer myself to you as a channel, a vessel for your love, and that you would speak to our hearts, Lord, and open our hearts to you.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So, I wanted to bring this here, because I just wanted to, I guess I'm going to pull out the bigger one, because you all can see it better. But anyway, how you all know that I'm an artist. And so I paint paintings. You'll wonder what I do, right? I don't just go to Myanmar. Anyway, this is just a gift that the Lord gave to me, and He allows me to use it. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I asked God to help me to paint, so thank you, Jesus. And when you look at something that a person created, in many ways, you're looking at their thought processes, their imagination, how they do things. And this being, of course, I like to paint landscape. That's like what I like to paint, oil on canvas. And for me, it reveals like who God is, okay? When you look at creation and you see, you are looking into God's imagination and His handiwork, and it is saying something about Him. It is saying something about who the one we say God is, saying something about who He is. I just have some questions for you all. And that is, you guys all can you see the birds? I don't know if you can see the birds in this picture, but there's some birds down here in the water. And something fascinating is that birds, their bones are hollow. Okay? Because that makes them to be able to fly. They're light. Okay? And what that reveals is that God is smart when he does something. God is not like just random, okay? There's nothing random about any of this. You know, God is intelligent. Something that might be rather interesting to some of you, this is a random nature fact too, because I love creation, I love nature. To me it says a lot about God, and we walk around it every day, okay? How many of you guys hear the birds at spring? Don't you love the birds? Like they're just like singing. You know, birds get up and they don't have a refrigerator to go to. And they just start singing and praising God. They're not worried about, you know, Jesus said, don't worry about your life. Birds express a kind of faith in God that we can learn from. Okay? You know, he says, your heavenly Father feeds these birds. You know how many, like, billions of birds there are? And they don't have, like, a bird Walmart? You know? And just how God is providing for their lives, you know? It's just amazing. To me, you could just like look out your window and realize like God is, and he is good, okay? In the average acre of land, there's up to 1 million spiders that live on that acre of land. Wow. And in the tropics, up to 3 million. There you go, good for the pest control business. Actually, spiders are a really good pest control business, but it reveals, in other words, you need to realize something. There's more going on than you realize. Yes. There's more going on around you than you realize. Okay? Can you imagine that? I wonder where they all live. They float around in the trees on the ground. All right, and here's one that blows me away. How much do you think the average cumulus cloud weighs in pounds? Because it contains water. You know it contains water. The cumulus cloud, talking about a cloud. How much do you think one weighs? Someone throw it out to me. A ton? Anyone else?
Billion pounds.
Whoa, Daniel says 1 billion pounds. Woo, Daniel! You're still too low. Come on, average cumulus cloud. I'm serious. Ready? This is going to blow you away. The average cumulus cloud weighs 2.2 billion pounds.
What?
The average cumulus cloud. These are storm clouds. These aren't cumulus clouds. These are bigger. Okay? The average cumulus cloud weighs 2.2 billion pounds and it floats. You can look this up. And it floats over your head. It's a normal day. Right? And you see, God is smart how he does things. It reveals how great and how wise he is. Because think about this, ready? We need to water Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is very big and it requires a lot of water. So we need to get billions of pounds of water to Fort Lauderdale, all right? You guys would be carrying buckets all day. You know? So God invented this thing called evaporation. Water floats up in the air, collects into this beautiful cloud. It's so simple and so beautiful, floats by the wind over Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we're going to drop billions of pounds of water on Fort Lauderdale, and we're not going to kill anyone. We invented precipitation, not we. God invented precipitation. It all comes down, little drops, this boop, 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 and you can have billions of pounds of water on Fort Lauderdale in only 40 minutes. Boom. Yep. You see, God, you have to understand something. When God does something, he is wise. He is smart. There is a reason why he does things the way he does things. He is organized. He is involved, and he is in the details. Okay? You have to realize that, and we learned that from creation. I mean, the one that I'm most fond of, and I'm just going to leave this up here. Back when I was about 15 years ago, I ended up just fascinated by stars. I don't think I've ever met a single person who doesn't like stars, and I was like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? And how God has created just billions of stars alone in our galaxy. And then there's billions of other galaxies. I know this is like saying a lot in just 2 words. But he has like names for every single one of them. And he doesn't forget where they are. He doesn't forget where they are. And he knows every single one of them by name. Of course, that's the reason why Adam wasn't supposed to name the stars, because we'd probably still be here naming them. Yes, you don't have enough alphabets in your language to figure this one out. And God is wise, and He is good, and He is great. He is great. He is eternal. And He is a faithful, unchanging God. He has not changed. You know, and many of us, we see this, and we see the beauty, and it's so beautiful. You see how simple that is? I know you're all thinking to yourself, wow, yeah, that's like a lot of work, and you look at creation like, that's great. It's so simple for the Lord. You know, He just, boom, there it is. And in His goodness, He chose to create us, okay? And to manifest Himself. Now I'm going to say something here, because a lot of people bring this up. And I knew a lady back in October. I was at an art show with her, and this is funny. I just loved her. We just get into this conversation, and for some reason, she started talking about the Lord. We were talking about the Lord, and it came out that she was really mad at God. She was effing mad at God, okay? Because think about it. If God is so good and so great and so wise, then why is this world like it is? Have you ever wondered that way before? Have you ever asked that question? And you're thinking to yourself, God, you know, because what happens is you look out your window and all the things that I just described to you to show how amazing God is, you're going to take all these other reasons and then dismember that whole argument. You see what I'm saying? And you have a choice who we're going to listen to. And where are we going to receive our data from? Okay? And this is one of the questions that came up in Myanmar. The kids are sitting there, we're sitting around in a circle. Why does God allow evil and suffering to happen? Most common question, you get it from kids and young people and everyone all the time. And I'm not saying, I'm just going to intellectually or just from a perspective of truth, reveal something about God here. Okay? We'll see where the Lord shows this, but God did not have to create us. That's the first thing you need to realize. Did you know that God has a choice? He chose to create. And I'll tell you something else. God did not have to send His own Son to die for mankind. Because we're the ones who also had a choice. Except you know what our choice led to? Our choice has led to evil and led to suffering. And you say, well, why would God allow us to have a choice if it was going to be so messed up? This is really simple, but you got to get it. Because God values love. And love requires that you be able to put value on a person by choosing them. All right? If you all pull out your smartphone and say, Siri, do you love me? Who, me? Yes, you. Do you love me? Okay. There's all these program responses in here. And the thing is,
What's it say?
She's trying to avoid the question. She's trying to avoid the question. Yes, see, she knew someone was going to do this, right? And a programmed, automated response, I'll make the choice for you and then program it into you, wouldn't produce anything of value worth creating. There would be no value in it. It wouldn't mean anything to you. Okay? If someone had a choice to willingly give value, to say, yes, I choose to place love upon a person of my own free will, that means something. And so we have been given the ability to choose. And in that comes all these issues. All right? Now here's the thing. You have to understand something. God knows that. And God is not a dummy. He is not foolish. Because this is what the lady said to me while I was sitting there and we were talking about, I said to her, well, God gave his only son, to die for us. And she says, oh, that means nothing. She's like, women give their children all the time. They have to go into battle. They have to this. Women give their, Mother's Day. They have to do that. What does it mean? That doesn't mean anything. And of course, she's involved with a lot of refugees in foreign countries, and there's a lot of suffering that she sees. And it was like the Holy Spirit just put it in my heart, and I was like, wait a second. It does mean something. And it hit me. I said, and this is the reason why. You know why it means something, why God gave his son? Let me say this too. Women don't give their children. They have to. They're forced to. They don't want to. God wanted to. God was the one who actually had the choice. He was the one to invent choice. He was the one who actually could make a real choice. Because there was nothing. He didn't need it. He didn't need creation. He is holy, eternal. But God chose to reveal himself. Think about this. This actually only supports who God is even more, in my opinion. If he was willing to choose to create, to choose to form, to choose to breathe man into his image, understanding and knowing all things, in his wisdom, he's not a fool. He chose to reveal himself and to send his only son and to give his life for us. God had to know in his wisdom that it would be worth it. He would have had to count the cost, just like how you count a cost when you buy a car, when you buy a house. Whenever you do something where it's going to cost you something to do it, you think about, is it worth it? If it costs you something and it's going to be too much, you don't do it. But if you realize it's going to be worth it, you'll go for it. And so God had to perceive and say, I need to count the cost of this. And he chose. It cost him nothing to create. It cost him everything to redeem your life. It cost him his only son to humiliate himself, to give his life. And he said, I would put that value upon mankind. I would choose to do it of my own free will. I want you guys to jump over to a passage of scripture. We're going to 1 Corinthians chapter 1. This kind of blows you away when you see it. First Corinthians chapter 1. And it talks here about the cross of Christ. And it says, I'm just going to read this in verse 18. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 18. The word of the cross is to those who are perishing foolishness, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. All right? Actually, let's listen to this. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the cleverness of the clever I will set aside. Where's the wise man? Where's the scribe? Where's the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through its wisdom did not come to know God, God was well pleased through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For indeed Jews ask for signs and Greeks search for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. To Jews a stumbling block and to Gentiles foolishness. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. You got to hear that. The foolishness of God, God looking dumb, is smarter than you on your best day. And God looking weak is stronger than you on your best day. The cross is the weakest point of God. And he, in that instant, vanquished all his enemies. Boom. At his weakest point. God in his weakness. You see, God is making a statement. He's revealing himself. He's saying, yeah, you think it's all dumb, huh? You think that it's dumb for me to do. He's like, in my wisdom, in my foolishness, the foolishness of God, to create human choices, to give them the ability to choose their own destiny, to interact with other choices, to interact with other... Oh my goodness, God is foolish. For consider your calling, brethren. There are not many wise among you according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble, but God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong, and the base things of the world, and the despised. God has chosen the things that are not, that he might nullify the things that are, that no man should boast before God. But by his doing are you in Christ Jesus, who became to us wisdom from God, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption, that just as it is written, let him who boasts, boast in the Lord. That our boast would be in Jesus Christ. And here's something that you need to realize. When it looks foolish, God is so smart. When it looks weak, God is so powerful. And he is working and weaving together. See, they didn't realize that they were checkmated at the cross. They thought they won. The enemies of darkness thought, all right, we got it now. We are going to assert our power. And it was like, God was like, yes, I have advanced moved you all the way to eternity. Boom, boom, boom. He's like, all right, let's do it. And God turned the most horrible thing in history into the salvation and redemption of mankind.
Hallelujah.
Think about it. Jesus is the only one who actually didn't deserve to be there.
Amen.
Jesus is the one who did not deserve to bear the sins and the curse of mankind. And he actually didn't have to. He chose to. That was part of his struggle. He was making a choice. He was making a free, honest choice. A free will choice to lay down his life. And not even fully understand everything that was going to happen, fell back into the arms of God and said, God, I trust you in this. I trust you. Because God was the one who had to raise him up. He let go into the arms of God. He was willing to trust God with the worst thing that happened in his life. Okay? And what man meant for evil, God meant for good. Now you got to hear this, because this is what the Holy Spirit is saying right now. God is able and willing to work all things together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Some of the worst things that you are upset about in your life, God can use for good. Now, God does not call evil good. And he does not call good evil. Evil is evil to God. But that does not mean that God is not powerful enough to weave together good out of evil. To weave together value out of trash. To show forth in ugliness his power and beauty. To take something that's twisted and destroyed and mangled and beaten to death and to breathe life into it. And if God was willing to and able to do that with his own son, it reveals something. God is also able and willing to do that in your life as well. God is able to take the horrible things of history and not ignore it, not say it was good, not say like, oh yeah, this is a wonderful thing, but through that, entrust it to him, produce something that you could have never imagined. God can do that. Amen. And I'm serious. And God has done that in many people's lives throughout history, and it's revealed in the scriptures, and it's revealed in our lives today. That God can take your biggest weaknesses and through that show forth his strength. God can take the things that I least enjoy, and he has a purpose for it. There's a reason. Okay, here's the thing. You have to, this holds up on two truths. Number one, you must realize that God is good. And that God is wise. And that whatever He does it for a reason. Okay? Maybe what they did to you was wrong. God was not sane. You know, God, in His wisdom, can navigate a messed up world. Alright? He can navigate it. And the other thing is that God is in charge. And when you trust Him and say, God, I give you the trust of my heart. You get to be in charge. I'm going to not hold on to my because what happens is we hold these things in bitterness against God. Give them to Him. The things that happen in my life that I'm upset about, that hurt me, give those up. Give them to the Lord. Get them out. Okay? The things that that I dislike, give them to God. Let Him be in charge. See what He is able to do. See what Him, being God in your life, can produce. Okay? Let the Lord do it. I remember just as a young man, some of my breaking points. It's amazing how we often go to God at our worst points. You know how that happens? You know when something goes bad, that's when you go to God, right? And how those times that even I can remember in my personal life, how God used that. Even though it was my bad choices of other people. Like, when I turned to the Lord, when I trusted Him, He used those things for good in my life. He used those things to bring about invaluable lessons and things that you could never imagine. And the other thing is, as you turn over to God, pain, issues, sins, you find that you're not supposed to carry them anyway. God's supposed to be the one that carries all that. Why are you trying to carry something that God says, I'm supposed to carry? Why are you trying to be in charge of yourself when God says, I'm supposed to be in charge? And part of it is we're scared, we're mad at God, and we don't know who He is. And He says, I have revealed to you that on your worst day, I give my life for you. Then give your worst day to God and see what He can do with it. If on your worst day, God would give His life for you, give it to Him. Okay? Today's a good day. Not because of what happens, but because God is in charge. Okay? God is in charge. And the enemy is going to attack. And you're going to have people say things to you. And they're going to do things at you. I remember on the Myanmar team, there was this one young gal, and she had this attitude. And she always had something to say. We would like pick a fight. It would be fun. But I would just tease her back. And the cool thing is that I would just respond with like the love of God in the situation. And she'd say something, and I'd just be like, man, you know, God loves you today. Or something like that. And it was like every day, it was like chipping it away, chipping it away, chipping it away. Because the well of hatred has a bottom, but the well of love has no bottom. Okay? And you can receive from the Lord continually in any and every circumstance. All right? I remember, you know, and all the things that, I remember when we were on our first week in Myanmar. I'm going to draw from this because this is like the most recent things that are happening in my life. And we were there, and we're teaching this group of 300 kids. There's 20 of us. And we open up the devotional for the day. This lady hands it to me, and it's on spiritual warfare. And we're like, oh yes, you know, good. And all of a sudden, after we're going through the devotional, we're praying together, we find out that the immigration officers are going to shut down our camp. We're having like a Christian camp there, and they're going to shut us down. And so we're like, all right, let's see what the Lord wants to do with this. You know, and we just prayed, and we're like, God, you're in charge. Thank you that you know what's going on. Thank you that you move upon hearts. Thank you. We're representing you here on this earth, and you're in charge here. Thank you. Boom. And so what happened is through this, you see, the devil makes his move, and God says, we'll go that way anyway. You know? And he was able to allow, the foreigners weren't allowed to teach. So what happened is all the Burmese students were able to teach. And they were actually promoted in leadership to begin to teaching and sharing. And what happened was, it was so beautiful. And by the end, everything kind of fizzled out and they left us alone. But like what the enemy used for an attack, when we received it with God's perspective, it turned into something better. Okay? You have to see it that way. All right? I remember one day getting very, very sick. All right? The enemy is going to attack. He's going to do all kinds of things, okay? Don't worry about it. That's like part of being here on earth. Jesus knew about that. And I remember just getting up and saying, Lord, thank you. Thank you that you're in charge. Thank you that you're in charge of everything. And I remember through that, being sick that day, I wasn't able to teach. It was actually a great day for it to happen. And through that, the Lord allowed me to intercede and pray in a really powerful way for what was going on. And beginning to thank and praise God for who He was in the situation. And it was just like, all right, good. You know, like, in other words, what I'm saying is, stuff happens, but it doesn't have to own you. You don't have to be owned by stuff, okay? And God has a reason for how He does things. What happens is, we have these expectations, like, sadly, we have this idea that life is all about me. Right? You guys have that idea too, right? Life is all about me, you know? And when it doesn't go the way that suits me or the way that I like, then it's not about you, okay? Because the next verse, and let's go here, and I'm going to finish my story, but go to Romans chapter 8. And this is the scripture that the Lord has been speaking to my heart. And I'm going to wrap this here. Is Romans 8:28. I'm sure you all know this verse, but this verse has been like echoing in my mind. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good, to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. And you know, part of the reason why it's hard for us to know God in the midst of difficulty is because we're not thinking according to His purpose. Sometimes we're thinking only about ourselves in situations and when things happen. He says, called according to His purpose, for whom He foreknew, He predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. God's goal for this masterpiece is to reveal Himself. And God's goal for your life is to reveal Jesus Christ. We're brothers and sisters with Jesus Christ. And so His goal is to form that image in us. The end of the love of God and of the gospel is not that everything is about me. Okay? And sometimes we think of it that way. We're like, Jesus died on the cross so I could have everything work out in my life. There would be no problems. It would just be amazing. Jesus Christ didn't even live that way. I mean, He went to a cross, okay? Come on. You know, like, you think of anyone who could have said, well, God, you love me so that everything works out in my life. What do you mean? You want me to do? You know what I mean? No. He was willing to lay down His life to be the image of God in the midst of death. Okay? That is what God is forming in us. It's not so that everything turns out our way and I become the center. In fact, you know what? That life is a dead-end road. There's a lot of people trying it and it's not working.
Amen.
Okay? Jesus says if you want to follow me, you got to let go of yourself. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. What are we doing? This is the image of Jesus. And follow Him. I love people. I love God. And I don't care if I get sick and beat up for it. This is wonderful. You know what I mean? To deny myself, to take up my cross, and to follow Jesus. This is what God is seeking to produce in your life. And He will bring about issues and circumstances and things that will shake your false view of life because He loves you.
Amen.
Okay? He loves you enough to get your attention. It says in Galatians 2, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And that is a wonderful thing. Having the Lord in your life, it's wonderful because I don't have to love myself anymore. there is someone who could love me for me. God can love me for me, and I don't have to love myself. I can lay down myself, and guess what? My life is hid with God. My identity is hid with Christ. And I'm free. I'm free to lay it down. It don't matter. Go ahead. Say what you want. You know, do what you need. You know, and that was part of, I think that was, when you see the resilience of believers, you're seeing their faith in who God is in their life.
Yes.
And that God was forming his purposes in them. When things don't happen the way I want, God has a reason for it. We were on our last day and traveling out of Beijing, and we had gone to the center where they had Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City there and everything, and did some touring, and we had to get on a plane to get back, and on our way back, we stopped to get brunch. It was supposed to be breakfast, but you're all switched around with time, right? So we get some dumplings and we order some chicken, and the chicken doesn't come. And we're like, God, please bring the chicken, we're hungry. And we're all like eating like rice and dumplings, you know? So anyway, it's time to go, and I'm paying the guy, and I'm like, all right, you know, we gotta leave, take off the chicken, please. And he doesn't take it off. Finally, they like bring it out, put it in like a doggy bag, and we like walk out. We're like, we gotta go. So we're on the train, getting there, and we open it up, and we're like, all right, let's try this chicken. And like one of the girls tasted it, and I tasted it, and I was like, it was not chicken. It was not chicken. It was like pig intestines. It was disgusting. It had the worst flavor, and the vegetables didn't even taste good. Oh, she's like, can I spit it out? Can I spit it out? She spits it out, and I'm like chewing it. Of course, you know, being a well-educated man, I just eat it. You know, you eat everything, right? Oh my goodness! By the time we got to load up on the plane, I was straight for the toilet. Oh yes, yeah. You know that feeling? I won't describe it to you where something's coming out of every hole in your body. Yeah. Oh, you know what? There's a reason why God does not bring out the chicken. Because it's not chicken. You think you're getting chicken. You know what? It's so true. You want your life to work out and be like this. There's a reason why it doesn't happen that way. Because that's not what life is about. It's bad for you. God is trying to produce something beautiful in your life, something amazing, and you have this idea that pig intestines is going to make you happy. Yes, it's not going to work. So thankfully, I'm holding my barf bag on this 12-and-a-half-hour flight back to Los Angeles. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, Tiger Mom. You know what's the wonderful thing about being sick for 24 hours? You feel amazing when you're done. Wow. Everything ejects, restart. It was actually beautiful because I actually was able to restart correctly on American food time. It was like it gave me a jump start to like jet lag processing. So anyway, thank you, Lord. And I just remember we were sitting there and one of the other girls was getting a migraine and we were there. She was having anxiety attacks and we were just saying, you know what? The devil is still after us. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus, that you are Lord in this situation, that you are in charge, and that, you know, when the devil attacks, sometimes that makes you know that something's good going on. Something's good going on when the devil attacks. Because he wouldn't be trying to attack you if there wasn't something valuable there to attack.
Amen.
Okay? I remember on our first week, Hannah and Pony were two missionaries there. And this is our last day. This hit me so hard. They had 40 kids with them that they drove in one vehicle 6 hours away to this camp. They had been missionaries for 30 years among a people group that they had to learn their language, translate the Bible, everything. We're getting out of the car, and Hannah's like, I just want to tell you something. Last day, saying goodbye. We just found out today that robbers came and stole everything out of our house back in Kala. And she said, and we praise the Lord. We praise the Lord. Because he has more things to bless us with. This is nothing for God. This is just the devil's attack. And that means that something amazing is happening this week. Something wonderful in the kingdom of God is happening this week, and we praise the Lord. Oh my goodness. I was like, lady, I was sitting there like, oh my goodness. Who responds that way? Wow, this is a normal Christian. Whoa. You want to know why? Because she had this invisible check in her hand from God. I promise that I will never leave you and never forsake you, and as long as you walk with me and do my will, whatever you need to do my will is given to you. Oh my goodness. She was richer than I was. I was sitting there like pulling all the money out of my bag. Here you go, you know. Can you imagine? Everything is stolen out of your house. You're doing the will of God, doing His work. Oh God, I can't believe it. I'm trying to follow you. Everyone hates me. Oh my goodness. God magnified Himself in dark situations. God magnifies His name. You are going to bail on the biggest opportunity to see God work? What are you going to give up too soon? You're thinking, my life's a mess. God is blah, blah, blah. If He was willing to give His only Son to redeem your life, you're going to bail on Him before He's done? You're going to quit, throw in the towel, say, oh my, the painting looks horrible. Yes, sometimes people do that when they come into my art room. They're like, wow, you need to fix this and this. And, oh, that painting's so... That's because it's not done until it's done, all right? It's not finished. The image is not fully formed yet. It might look worse before it gets better. And that's how God is working right now in your life. And yet some of you are complaining about it. You're not allowing the Lord to have His way. You're blaming Him for His goodness in your life. You're chastising Him for things that He can use to produce beauty, to reveal His name. You need to draw upon the riches of Jesus. You need to draw upon your identity in Christ. You need to know that God is a good Heavenly Father. That He is good in any and every situation. Why else would He command us to give thanks in all things? Always giving thanks for all things in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. If God is not good and in charge and able to take the worst thing and make something good out of it, then what is there to not be thankful for? Now, you might not be grateful for this, but you can thank that God is in charge and that He is good in the midst of things. And you can choose to praise Him. And when you do that, you usher the presence of God and the power of God into the situation. All of a sudden, God is like free to like do, all right, He's, boom. He's like, I'm going to move it. And you know what? It may not be like what you want, but it's going to be better than what you could have imagined. That's how God works. It might not be what you want, but it will be better than what you could have planned. Because God is wise when He does things. He is smart with how He does things. He wants us to draw into who He is, that His name would be hallowed, to be conformed to the image of His Son. There's a story that I've been reading lately of a woman you may know about. Her name is Corrie ten Boom. She's passed in 1993. But a woman who grew up in Poland, and her family housed Jews during the World War II. There's a book and a movie called The Hiding Place, which tells her story. And there's a sequel that I've been reading to her called Tramp for the Lord. And she saw many bitter things. She would, you can't imagine some of the stuff that they went through in concentration camp, and just the abuse, the humiliation, the hard labor, the spitefulness. And yet God was doing His work. Despite all the devils full throttle, all of mankind's hatred, she was famous for saying this statement: there is no pain or darkness where God is not deeper still. The depths of God's love go deeper than all the hatred and pain that you feel right now. This is a woman who came out of German concentration camp. And that through that, her sister ended up dying, her father, a lot of things. And she came out, and God used her, formed his life in her, and began to show forth his excellencies and his gospel to people all around the world. She traveled to over 60 countries, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. Whoa. She read a poem. I remember it in the first chapter that I just want to read to you and leave you with this. This is an anonymous person. My life is but a weaving between God and me. I do not choose the colors. He worketh steadily. Oft times he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper, and I the underside. Not till the loom is silent and shuttles cease to fly will God unroll the canvas and explain the reason why. The dark threads are as needful in the skillful weaver's hand as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned. It's one thing to hear it from a lady who went through what she went through. But if you look right to Jesus Christ, you can see the same thing. He was willing to trust God with injustice, with pain, and God, through that, did something way better than what mankind could have imagined. God is saying to us, will you trust me? Will you let me be in charge? Will you stop fighting against me and blaming me and saying that I don't know what I'm doing, that I'm foolish? And yes, it hurt, and yes, it was wrong, and yes, it was paining. Get it out and give it to him. Give it to him. Acknowledge that he is in charge in your situation. And turn your will and trust over to him. Let him have it. Let him be the one who finishes the painting. Let him be the one who shows forth his face and beauty in your life. Don't try to control the Lord. Just give yourself to his control. And believe that God is willing and able and working. He is involved in today. This day, he is involved. And to thank him, to praise him, to acknowledge him that he is Lord. He is Master and that he is God. This is the grace of Jesus Christ. Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more.
Amen.
All right? Where the devil is dark, the smallest light is even brighter. Bring him into the situation. Bring God into the situation. Bring God into your heart. Okay? He's there. Just don't hold him back. Let go of self. Let go of you. God, whatever you want to do, what you're producing, keep doing that. Fill me. Work in me. Let me be what you are desiring to do. You'll be amazed. You're going to find out with God. You're going to find out with him. You're going to say this if you trust the Lord. It's worth it. It's worth it, Lord, for me to lay down my life. It's worth it because you are worthy. You are so good, Lord. You are worthy. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for what you're doing, Lord, in our hearts. I pray that you would continue, Lord, to form your Son. Lord, to produce and to fulfill your eternal purpose for which you created us. I pray that all of us in here, Lord, would become just vessels and channels for Jesus Christ. And that you would have your freedom on earth to express yourself right in the midst of issues and hurts and quote-unquote bad days. Lord, you're in charge. And if you're in charge, we're going to have a good day. And you're able to work all things together for good. I pray that you would just plant your word deep into our hearts, that you would give us a vision of who you are right now, who you are in our situation, that you sit as king over the flood. Let us be still, Lord, and know that you are God. Hallelujah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your word, Lord, for your truth. We yield ourselves to you.